Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta coming at you. We're going to do a little Monday Night Football takeaways on today's show. We're going to go through the tiers of the playoff teams, as we always do on the Tuesday show. We're going to have our Upon Further Review segment where we review big storylines going on throughout the NFL. We're going to have JP's playbook. And then my rookie report, going to focus on the offensive tackle class at the end. But JP, let's start with the generational performance that Sully put on against Mike Wazowski. He was just running train on Mike Wazowski on Monday Night Football. We got the stats here: 4 picks, a sack, receiving touchdown, fantasy points off the charts. I don't think Mike Wazowski came to play last night.
It's incredible because Sully was not only intercepted Jalen Hurts 4 times, sacked Jalen Hurts once, had a couple of really nice run stops. He was also important. He was on the receiving touchdown. He had a 60-yard catch.
Yeah.
He also was. Oh yeah. I did not expect Sully to have that much speed in like 7'8" and like 600 pounds. That is a physical specimen on the level of like Myles Garrett. He was giving Jordan a lot of problems on Monday night. And then he even stepped in at quarterback when Justin Herbert's hand had finally taken too many hits, led the Chargers down the field for the game-tying field goal. We will have to talk about this game when we talk about the GOAT status, the GOAT discussion. I think Tom Brady's in trouble.
Yeah, if Sully keeps playing like this the rest of the season, MVP's locked up. But on the flip side, Mike Wazowski and this Eagles team, man, we have problems. Obviously, we're joking with the Monstars there, but the Eagles actually have problems. This offense is a disaster. Over the last 5 weeks, they're 26 in offensive EPA per play. They're behind the Saints over their last 5 games. This offense, it is ugly. Jalen Hurts, 4 picks in this one. Now, one was off A.J. Brown's hands. The last one, kind of a tipped, forced pass, maybe not the worst decision in the world. Other 2 that were tough. This Eagles team right now, they cannot get out of their own way.
So I was a little curious on why this Eagles offense feels so disjointed and why the passing game felt like there was more flaws, even with higher volume. And that's because in 2024, when the Eagles offense turned it around, they took the ball out of their quarterback's hands. Like they ran the ball so much after that bye week. According to Ben Baldwin's site on The Athletic, after their week 5 bye week, the Eagles' pass frequency over expected on all plays was negative 10%. They were actively running the ball more often than they threw it, and that's because they had a historic run game. But now that the run game isn't historic, they're trying to find ways to move the ball more efficiently. Jalen Hurts is a flawed passer, but there are things he can do well. But those things that he does well are often married with the threat of the run game and the threat of his run game. And the fact that they're not running him and the fact that he's not passing the ball very well, I won't even say arguably, this is the worst performance of his career. We're reaching like DEFCON level 1, like scenarios for this offense, because there is no fix that's going to happen this season. Like, you can fire Kevin Patullo. I think Kevin Patullo should be fired, but some of it's just the dudes that you're supposed to be making plays just aren't being dudes right now.
I think that's a big part of it too. I mean, obviously Saquon has a big run in this one, but throughout the season, that has not been something that's been reliable and just been like the opposite of last year. You went from a running game, like you said, that you could basically hand the ball off 75% of their snaps last year offensively, and you would probably average still well over 20 points per game. That's not there. If you hand the ball off first and second down, chances are you're in like a 3rd and 8 this year. Like it hasn't been that sort of success rate, that sort of consistency. And so they're looking for other answers otherwise. And I don't know if you saw Chris Sims' rant on this, but like Jalen Hurts not playing good. 2 of the last 4 weeks, he has been negative 0.4 EPA or worse. You know, you said this was his worst performance of his career. Week 11, he was just about the same in terms of EPA per dropback. Like it has been ugly as of late for this passing attack. Just do think a lot of it falls back into Jalen Hurts. I agree that I don't think, A.J. Brown is at his prime anymore. I don't think he's quite the guy he was, 2 years ago. but he's still a darn good wide receiver. He's still good in those contested situations, although he had one yesterday that he didn't secure. But like, I think a lot of it still falls on Jalen Hurts and his limitations in this passing offense, and just how you have to scheme around those limitations, and how he's had to for his entire career, basically.
And even with AJ Brown, like, he was not good. Well, he had 100 yards on 13 targets, but when they needed him most, he dropped the touchdown in the back of the end zone. He had another play on a swing pass where he's just checked out and is just not blocking or being effective. And it feels like that happens too often now. It feels like AJ Brown probably won't be on the Eagles this time next year.
Oh yeah,
I think he is done with this entire thing. So then, like, again, it kind of falls back on Jalen Hurts. It falls back on a quarterback that you have to scheme specifically for a specific type of offense. And that offense requires so many different things to be good. And it just feels like those things that are supposed to be good just haven't been that this year.
Yeah, AJ's gone. Two of the last 3 seasons, this is how they've ended. You know, one in a Super Bowl, obviously, but it took a historic rushing game to do so. But 2023 down the stretch looked like exactly what we're seeing this year. 3 straight losses from the Eagles now. An offense that was just reeling, that looked like it couldn't get out of its own way. And I think a lot of it is the connection between AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. Have you seen the clip of them talking at the end of last year's Super Bowl?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
I would recommend going and listening to it, because I thought it was very enlightening on their relationship, because it's almost like 2 guys talking past each other. If you haven't seen the clip and you're listening to this, like, definitely go watch it. It's just like the way you can just tell that they're not like, that it's not, that there's like still friction. They just won the Super Bowl, and it's like still an awkward interaction that they can't just be like celebratory with each other. I thought it was just very telling of their relationship as a whole. And it's like, I don't think you can continue this with how it's gone this season. I just don't think you can.
There was also a point during the game on the Monsters Inc. broadcast where Roz, sideline reporter, did a fantastic job. Asked the players which player on the team has the most like boss vibes, like it's either my way or the highway. AJ Brown was the first person to answer this question for the Eagles, and he said himself, like, that is he is the most online person, I think, in the NFL. I think it's amazing that he answered that with like, yeah, I think it's me. Like, if I don't have it my way, it's the highway. It's like, oh, all right, man. Well, there's our answer to why the Eagles offense is sort of falling apart and why AJ Brown hasn't felt like the same AJ Brown that we've gotten in seasons before. So it feels like the offense is trying to find answers in a season that, you know, you just might not have it.
I think it's the highway. Let's be honest, I think it's about to be the highway. Now the playoff odds, though, for these teams, the Eagles still very likely to make the playoffs. A lot of that's because they played the Commanders twice down the stretch, and we obviously know the Commanders at 3-10 are reeling even harder than the Eagles are this season. But 92% chance to make the playoffs. Cowboys kind of nipping on their heels, still an 11% chance. So they have an easiest schedule themselves, but obviously 3 wins from the Eagles out of their last 4, and that's that. They will be your NFC East champions. On the flip side, Chargers now up to a 78% chance to make the playoffs, still involved in the division, 13% chance there. Big win for them, though, to get to 9-4. That was worst case scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs, which just happened on Monday night.
Can we get the audio? Striker has the audio of Jim Harbaugh talking about how big of a win this was. Can we get that audio, Striker, please?
Yes. This is definitely, maybe the best feeling, just a wonderful feeling of winning and thrill of victory. It's certainly in the discussion. I put it in the discussion, the birth of my 7 children, my marriage, in the conversation.
Mind you, this man has won a national championship as a coach. And this week 14 win against the Eagles
Yeah.
in Monstropolis is the game that just means more to him. But this game, it
Also went to a Super
exemplified.
Bowl.
He also did go to a Super Bowl. Like he's won at the highest levels of the sport, but this game means more. This Chargers team is flawed. They are a very flawed team. Justin Herbert was pressured once again on 68% of his dropbacks with a broken hand. At one point in this game, Justin Herbert was pressured on 72% of his dropbacks, which is a number I don't think I've ever seen for a quarterback. Like at this point, Justin Herbert is setting his own records each week for how many times like his highest pressure rate of his career. It's just week in and week out at this point. But they just find ways to win. Justin Herbert found ways to win. And in this game, it was the scrambling. It was the timely, like 3rd and 4, like 17-yard run to help on the game-tying field goal drive. It's the shaking off defenders and getting like 6 yards on 3rd and 5. It's those type of plays where like, look, man, the Eagles defense, which again is terrific, which is why wasting this defense with that offense feels like it feels disrespectful, but they weren't getting any separation downfield. They could not win throwing the ball. So Justin Herbert was like, fine, I'll go win this game with the scrambles. And that's what we see the elite quarterbacks do. And I think Justin Herbert, despite everything that has happened to the offensive line this season, has been one of the NFL's elite quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's if you're a Chargers fan, and I think we've kind of poo-pooed their Super Bowl chances, and like rightfully so. When you're on the tackles that they are offensively, it's going to be tough. But you just got to be happy as hell with the combination that is Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. It feels like the sort of combination that you're just going to make the playoffs every single year. And if this team, with all the injuries they've had, the key positions, if this team is still firmly in the playoff, and this team is 9-4. Yeah, you're going to be in the mix every single season. So yeah, maybe it's not this year. Maybe this isn't the best team, but you will have one. You know, you got probably a decade more of Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. One of those teams, a number of those teams probably are going to be Super Bowl caliber. So even if it's, again, not how this season would have likely gone, you're going to have that tackle duo back. You're going to re-sign that tackle duo. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So you have a great situation, probably about as good as anyone in the NFL in terms of long-term prosperity that you have there in Los Angeles.
And I think that not only do you have Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, I think you have a defense that's really well set up for the future in terms of youth. Like Cam Hart played a fantastic game on Monday night. And I think the game-ending interception, I clipped his mock draftable sheet. I said, here's why Cam Hart made the great play. 91st percentile arm length, 93rd percentile wingspan. Drafting tall guys with long arms in this defense really helps. And it feels like Cam Hart, the game is sort of slowed down for him at this point, where in this defense, you're not going to be asked to play a lot of man-to-man coverage. You're not going to be asked to do a lot of traveling with receivers. But what they ask you to do is make breaks on the ball in zone. And on that play, Eagles are running an RPO to that side, and they're trying to put him in conflict with Dallas Goedert running out towards him, and then Jahan Dotson trying to run behind him as the flat defender. And he covers both routes and makes a play on the ball for that interception. Those are things that you can tell like a corner is really starting to see the game a lot better. He had a great pass breakup on A.J. Brown in the back of the end zone. He caught an interception. He has just been really good for them this season, along with Tarheeb Still. You get Deion Henley still playing great. Like they're still being set up effectively for the future. And Jesse Minter has been a fantastic coordinator for him. I don't know how long he will be the coordinator for them because he might get a head coaching job soon. But the longer they can keep him around, this defense is going to be very good.
Yeah, I can't wait for draft season because, well, for a lot of reasons. One, because I love draft, but two, because I do think the body types and the sort of what you usually look for on defense is evolving. There's a lot of position groups, whether it's along the defensive line, whether it's cornerback, that look a lot different than they did say even 5 years ago in terms of what you want at those positions. And I think you touched on a lot of those with Cam Hart, and we'll get to a lot of those conversations in the coming months. But we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, do our tiers, where we'll find out where the Chargers end up, and we'll find out where the Eagles end up after that Monday Night Football thriller. Coming up next.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
No, that is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
All right. We're going to start with the pat on the head tier. And this is only for like teams with any sort of playoff hopes whatsoever. We have a lot of teams eliminated right now from playoff consideration. Pat on the head tier. It is the Panthers, the Dolphins, it's the Colts, and it's the Cowboys. These teams, it's all kind of like, hey, things went okay this year. You could still make the playoffs. Some of these teams very easily could still make. Panthers could easily make the playoffs. Cowboys have a good chance to make the playoffs. Colts, if they can just lean on that running game with Riley Leonard, could still make the playoffs. But it's like, hey, this was fun, but that's kind of it at that point. These teams are just, it's a pat on the head. Gold star. Good job, good effort. Sort of tier.
Do we mean Colts quarterback Phillip Rivers part 2? It hasn't happened yet, but according to all the reports, he did work out for them. He threw the ball well on Monday night. They're still having talks, still discussing.
Define well. I need to see what it looked like to hear it well. I can believe it's accurate.
Yeah,
I saw how strong his arm was last time.
I mean, and that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 4 or 5 years ago. He's 44 years old. And I want you to go look at the remaining games that the Colts have left this season. They play the Seahawks and the Texans. They play the Seahawks next week. You're not putting a grandfather out there against the Seahawks, man. That he is a literal grandpa. You cannot put Phillip Rivers under center for either of those. You can't put him under center against the Jaguars. What are we doing?
Honestly, their best bet, just turn Riley Leonard. I mean, did we watch the national championship game last year against Ohio State? Riley Leonard was just a battering ram. That's what you do. Run the wing T, completely revamp the offense, and just don't let him pass much. That's not how you're going to win. But let's see this running game with a running threat at quarterback too. That's your best bet if you're the Colts. I don't think it's 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, unless, what was that movie with the rookie with Dennis Quaid, where he retires from baseball, comes back, and all of a sudden he can throw like 95 when he never threw 95 before. Unless that happened to Phillip Rivers in his late 30s, early 40s, I don't think he's going to be the answer to this team. But I want to see it, though. I think we all want to see it.
I do think it'd be kind of cool for Phillip Rivers going in like his old man Logan arc with the Colts once again. After he retired as a Charger this season. There's a tribute video the Chargers made to Phillip Rivers this season. And for him to come out of retirement as a Colt would be very funny. But Riley Leonard's also gotten an injury. He hurt his knee in the Jaguars game. So now you have Daniel Jones out for the year. Anthony Richardson out for the year. Riley Leonard, week to week. So at some point, like the emergency quarterback at this point is Tyler Warren. And I think that would be fun. Just
That's
go out
actually,
there,
yeah, that
go out
works
there
too.
and put Tyler Warren at quarterback and see what happens. But look, man, you can't put maybe against the 49ers. Maybe you put Phillip Rivers back there against the 49ers. But putting a 44-year-old grandfather back there under center against the Seahawks of all teams, no. Somebody has to step in and be like, look, this is not a good idea. One of his kids has got to be like, hey, don't do this. Do not do this to yourself. The Seahawks will fold you in half.
Also, did you see real quick, his oldest kid is the same age as Riley Leonard?
Oh my gosh, I did not realize that. That's outstanding.
Wait.
Can he play quarterback?
This is insane. This is truly, like, if it happens, is the most insane thing to happen in the NFL this year.
Does he have to retire as a Charger again if he unretires?
If he unretires, that pushes his clock back another 5 years.
But does he have to go does he have to say, okay, I'm actually retiring as a Charger again? Does he have to go do another
I'd
press
retire
conference?
as a Charger. I retire as a Charger again. Like, this didn't count. This little 4-game stretch doesn't count.
I feel like only the Colts who had Jeff Saturday as their head coach could bring back Phillip Rivers at 44 years old. All right, next tier. It's the do we really have to still include them tier? And it's the Steelers, Ravens, Chiefs, Bucks, Bengals. I just don't need to see a playoff game for these teams. You know how the 11 and 12 seed in the college football playoffs this year, gosh, I'm blanking on Tulane and James Madison. It's like, we don't need to see them in the playoffs. You know, we don't need to see them in the playoffs to know that that's not the best team in college football this year. We don't need to see the Steelers, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Bengals in the playoffs to know that they aren't the best team in the NFL this year, that they aren't hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. We just can be done with these teams, in my opinion.
Well, the thing with James Madison and Tulane, both those teams are 11-1 and 11-2. The entire AFC North can just go. None of those teams, except for the Steelers, are above 500. This is a bad football division this year, and I really do not want to see any of them in the playoffs. The Bengals, we know, historically bad defense. No matter how good Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, no matter how good they are, that defense is still going to be the reason they lose games. And everybody's going to be like, well, the Bengals are exciting. No, they're not. We know what's going to happen. They're going to put up 30 points and give up 40 because that's how every Bengals game goes. The Ravens are just not – they're just not what we thought. I keep trying to be like, oh, this Ravens team can still be the Ravens team we thought they would at the beginning of the season. That Ravens team is gone, and especially with Lamar Jackson not healthy, I don't want to see this Ravens team in the playoffs. And then the Steelers, look, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Aaron Rodgers is not going to – I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to do what he did to the Ravens again. I just don't think we're going to get that downfield passing back. I think that was just a one-game thing. Now, I'm happy to be wrong if he does do it again, but I'm good on all these teams.
Yeah, right there with you. All right, next one. It's the not until their offense shows signs of life. And it's one team, it's the Eagles. It's just hey, we know how talented they are. They are your reigning Super Bowl champions. I don't even think they are. I wouldn't even, if they play like the Bucks right now in the playoffs, I'm not sure I'm picking it. If they played, any of the wild card teams right now, I don't think they'd be favored. They need to show signs of life offensively before I'm ready to call this team anywhere near a contender.
In a way, they sort of feel like the 2024 Chiefs, where they used to win all these games close, but they won those games close because they also had one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play on their side. They could play close games and the Chiefs could come out and win them because they had Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles offense doesn't have Patrick Mahomes. They don't have a player of that caliber with the run game and with the offense, the rushing offense looking the way it does. So the biggest advantage the Eagles had last season was that they were better than you on the offensive and defensive line. That advantage just doesn't exist anymore. So now you're just wondering, what other advantage do you have at this point?
I got nothing. I don't know. I got nothing. That's why they stink. That's why they lost 3 in a row. The Eagles just show some signs. Show some signs of life. We could talk, but not until then. All right, next tier. This is the flawed but well-coached tier. And it's obvious. It's when I say the teams, it's the 49ers, the Chargers, the Jaguars. It's 3 teams that if you had middling to below average coaching staffs, that these would not be playoff teams. I think that's blatantly obvious for, number of different reasons. With the Jaguars, we literally saw, the Jaguars are, for most intents and purposes, the same team last year. They didn't add a ton of pieces from last year's team. It's just, what's the big difference? A lot better coaching staff. So if you had Doug Peterson coaching any of these three teams, is I guess a long way of saying it, they'd all be drafting in the top 10.
I would argue that the Jaguars should go in sneaky.
Ooh, okay.
I'm ready to buy in on this team because it just feels like the offense, even without like putting up super big numbers, it feels like there's just more sustainability with this offense. With Jacoby Myers back and with both he and Brian Thomas Jr. on the field, Brian Thomas Jr. has sort of been more of a specialist in his role. Like he's like super duper Jameson Williams, where like all you're doing is running downfield. And we're gonna throw you a bunch of downfield stuff. And that explosiveness combined with Jacoby Myers' ability to win in between, you get Brenton Strange back healthy. But the most underrated part of this team is that the defense is still putting up some pretty good numbers and pretty good performances. Josh Hines Allen has been arguably the best defensive lineman outside of Cleveland over the last month and a half. You get great performances from Devin Lloyd once again. You're getting some good cornerback play from Jarian Jones. And I actually think their UDFA edges, BJ Green and Danny Strigow, have played really, really well in this defense. Danny Strigow had a sack called back because of a defensive holding, but he's just played really well. He had that sack against Bernard Raymond. And you're getting sustainable play from both sides of the ball. Like, I'd say they're sneaky. They run hot and cold naturally because the offense sort of runs hot and cold. But when they're on, they can score 36 points. They can score 40 points. Like when this offense is firing on all cylinders, they can be super explosive.
All right, let's get to the sneaky teams, then I'll talk about the Jaguars. Sneaky teams I had Texans, Bears. And I think they kind of fit in the sneaky teams because one of the things the Jags have done really well is turn everyone else over. They are sixth in the NFL in terms of turnover differential. They are second in the NFL in terms of total turnovers. Whereas the Texans and the Bears and the Texans are number one and number two in turnover differential this season. So like these teams have shown a knack for getting the football. And I think all of them, Texans for obviously the fact that their defense is so dominant. The Bears for the fact that their running game is so dominant and has been so dominant. And you have a unique threat at quarterback in Caleb Williams that if you told me these teams snuck through and got to the Super Bowl, like I said, also with the Jaguars, I think more so than the 49ers or Chargers, I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Now I would be probably, and why I did include the Jaguars in this, I just don't think they are. I just think Trevor through a 3-game sample, because they're obviously not, I don't think they're going to get the 1 seed. Over a 3-game stretch, I just don't trust him to go 3 for 3 in terms of good performances they would need to beat all three of those teams in a way that I trust the Texans defense to go for 3 for 3. I trust the Bears offense and running game to go 3 for 3 in those scenarios. That's the only reason, but I could see the argument. I definitely think they have a better chance than the 49ers or Chargers at this point.
I like having the Texans in a sneaky team because I think that's the team that nobody wants to play once we get to the playoffs, and they're one of the wild card teams because they're going to turn every game into a 17-10 rock fight. Yeah. That's how good that defense is. And again, they don't really hide what they're doing. They don't disguise coverage. They don't line up in a lot of different pressure packages. They're going to probably line up with Azeez Al-Shaair standing over the A-gap, all their defensive linemen in like loose 3 techniques, Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter in wide 9s, and say, go beat us. And the only way to beat this Texans defense is, you got to attack. You got to go after Kamari Lassiter, who has been very good. Jalen Petre, who's been very good. You got to try and go after those guys because you're not going to go after Derek Stingley Jr. So they have so many things on defense that makes it really tough to beat them in a single game sample size. And then CJ Stroud and Nico Collins is sort of just all you need is just a couple of big plays from them. And you can make something happen. And then for the Bears, I actually don't trust the Bears defense as much as if we're looking at the flawed but well-coached teams and the sneaky teams. I actually think I trust the Bears defense the least because although they have a lot of turnovers, we've said before, turnovers aren't very sticky.
Yeah.
So turnovers not being sticky and the fact that they don't have pass rush really scares me. And I think the difference between their defense and the Jaguars' defense is Josh Hines-Allen versus Montez Sweat this season. But
No, that's very fair.
Josh Hines-Allen has been on a tear, and Montez Sweat has not really been like that great of a pass rusher for them. But on the flip side, the Bears' offense is probably the best offense of that group of 5 teams because of the ability to win with the run game and because they can just generate explosives out of a hat. Because Caleb Williams is so hard to bring down, you can't put them in negative plays. That's the biggest thing with this Bears team. They don't have negative plays because Caleb Williams doesn't take sacks, and the run game is so good that they're never being tackled behind the line of scrimmage.
To put some numbers to it, the Montez Sweat, Bears top edge rusher, he's 32nd in pressures in the NFL. That's your number one guy. Usually your number one guy should be like, so that's the one of the worst number ones in the NFL. Is a good way of putting that. All right, get to next year. Very good teams. They're not great teams. They're very good teams. It's the Bills, Patriots, Broncos, Lions. I'll just talk about it in tandem then with the great teams. Those are your very good teams. And then the great teams are the Rams, Seahawks, Packers. They're all in the NFC. NFC is obviously, I just think the top of the NFC is a clear tier above the top of the AFC now. Obviously, the AFC has better records, the top of them, but that's also because I think the AFC as conference just has some worse teams. But I still include the Lions in a very good team. And I still think they are. I still think if they make the playoffs, they're going to be scary. And just big reason why they didn't make the playoffs that their schedule is, their schedule compared to the Patriots schedule this year is like night and day. Just in terms of how many good teams they played. So I think that's the big difference there between these two tiers.
Yeah, I think the Lions are still a very good team, as evidenced by the fact that at a drop of the hat, they can go score 44 points.
Yeah.
Like they can generate those type of performances. There'll be times where the offensive line doesn't play that well, but although they played admirably against the Cowboys, and I think Dan Campbell has really sort of grown into his own as a play caller. So again, if the Lions make the playoffs, you don't want to see them in the NFC because they can score 40 points and you got to keep up with them. But yeah, like I agree with you. The great teams in the NFC, it feels like the NFC is a little more well-balanced than the AFC. The AFC is very top-heavy. And some of the teams we expected to be very good or great just haven't been this season. But that fight between the Seahawks, Rams, and Packers for the 1 seed is going to be one of my favorite things to track as we keep going this season.
That's going to be so impactful because not only are you getting the bye, you are kind of avoiding the fact that one of the top wild cards is going to be a house. The top wildcard team is going to be kind of like it was last year with the Vikings. It's going to be a very tough team to play this season. I'll say this about the Detroit Lions. They're 5th in the NFL in point differential this season still. Like that's still a good indicator of how good a team is. They've just lost a lot of close ones, and their defense right now, it's just not good. It just with all the injuries, with Brian Branch now out for the season, it's like, I don't think it's ever coming back, unfortunately, to the level we had hoped. We thought if they were at full strength, it just ain't going to happen. So that's why they are no longer, in my opinion, a great team. All right, there's our tiers. Let's get to upon further review and start with this because we kind of just touched on it. The first one, upon further review, the NFC representative is winning the Super Bowl again this year.
I'm going to say it stands. I'm not confirming it because I do think there's a potential for, because all the NFC has some really great teams from top to bottom, they just sort of cannibalize each other. And the NFC champion comes out really weakened by the fact they had to play like a murderer's row of teams in the AFC. Like if you get the bye in the AFC, like if you're the Patriots, you're thinking maybe like you might face the Texans once, or you might face the Bills, but I do think that the NFC just overall has better teams. Like they're just better teams from top to bottom. When you think about the flaws for each team, every NFC team's flaw feels like it's a lot smaller than the AFC.
The AFC teams are not nearly as complete. And I think just like one of the biggest things, just look at the defensive lines of those teams in the top tier of the Rams, Seahawks, Packers, even the Eagles. Like the D lines, those are probably 4 of the 5 best D lines in the NFL. I'd say like that's maybe 4 of the 6. You got to throw the Broncos and Texans in there in the AFC, but like those teams are, and that's where you're going to have to get through to get to the playoffs. So I'm confirming this one though. I think they are just that much better. I think those teams are Rams, Seahawks, Packers. I think they neutral site any of those other teams coming out of the AFC, whether it's the Broncos, whether it's the Patriots, whether it's Texas. I just think they are clearly, better than those teams. So I'll confirm it early still, but I just think they're that much better this season. Next one. Upon further review, a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers can get the Colts to the playoffs.
Get this out of here. I'm overturning this without hesitation. He's 44. Like we've seen 44-year-olds like Tom Brady like actually do the damn thing and win the Super Bowl. But Tom Brady didn't have a 5-year break in between when he last played. Like Phillip Rivers was coaching high school football this year. Like this is unprecedented. Like, yeah, man, 44 years old against the Seahawks, Niners, Texans, Jaguars. No, please save yourself. Go home and be a family man.
Yeah, I'll overturn it. I want it. Like a part of me is just so rooting for him to come back and just like go for 400 against Seahawks. I mean, that would be the coolest story of the season. But I live in the real world and we have to be realistic about expectations. He ain't keeping them afloat, sadly. Next one, Colts related also. Daniel Jones is still the starter for Indy next season. For context, his contract's up. He is a free agent after this year, and obviously just tore his Achilles. Recovery is about 6 months to full activity, but obviously full activity to full NFL activity is a different animal, can be up to a year for all that.
I'm going to overturn this with the caveat that I do think he is going to be an Indianapolis Colt next season. But you add on to not only a torn Achilles, but also a fractured fibula in the other leg. These are 2 serious injuries that are going to take a long time for him to come back from. I don't think we see Daniel Jones in 2026 unless it's really late into the season. And you're sort of gonna have to stick with riding out with Riley Leonard. It's unfortunate for Daniel Jones, but yeah, I just think both those injuries, and if it was just one leg that had both injuries, I'm like, I could maybe see it, but both legs at the same time, I don't know. I think he is going to remain a Colt, but I don't think he is going to start for the Colts next season.
Yeah, I do think that's a good way to put it. I would be floored if he goes anywhere else, just because the value to anyone else is so minimal. Who wants to sign a guy with an Achilles, given his track record of performance? It's just like he really only has value to the Colts. It'll probably be another 1-year deal, probably be about the same range as what he signed this year, just given that injury. But I think it'll be I think you almost have to do either open competition or just like he's not quite healthy enough for week 1. And so seeing what you got in it's probably going to be Anthony Richardson and Riley Leonard again. I don't see why not. It's Anthony Richardson's final year of his rookie deal. You're not going to pick up his 5th-year option, but it's really no skin off your back to bring him back. So yeah, I will say stands. I think he starts at some point next year. So if that's technically still the starter in Indy, then I don't know. And I guess that counts, but I'll just say stands. I think at some point start.
You also have the cautionary tale of what happened to Kirk Cousins in recovery from his Achilles injury, where you don't want to rush him back because Kirk Cousins is clearly not the same player. And of course, Kirk Cousins is 36 years old, but Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones is getting up there in age. He's 28. He'll be 29 next year, but you don't want to rush this guy back from an Achilles injury. He won't be the same player. And because of how much they run bootleg, all the RPOs, the threat of the run game with Daniel Jones, that stuff matters. And if he's not a viable runner, then I don't know how much worth it is for him to start next season.
Next one. Shedeur Sanders will be a starting quarterback somewhere in 2026. Not necessarily Cleveland, but somewhere.
I'm going to confirm this.
Ooh.
And I think it comes with the caveat of what the Browns' plans are. So right now, I believe, according to Tankathon, the Browns are sitting at the 4th overall pick in this draft, behind the Giants, Raiders, and Titans. Raiders probably pick a quarterback if they stick there. Browns probably pick a quarterback as well because the Giants and Titans don't need quarterbacks. But if Shedeur Sanders plays the Browns out of QB range, he'll probably be the starting quarterback in 2026. It's very similar to what Spencer Rattler did with the Saints last season, where you give him another shot. If it works,
well, you didn't technically play them out. I don't think you won a game, but yeah.
Well, like, yeah, he didn't really.
But I know what you mean.
He played well.
They had won too many games to get a quarterback, and so it's like, well, we'll see what we got.
Yeah, if they win too many games, get out of quarterback range, I mean, I could see it happening. I could see him being the Browns starting quarterback. But if they're still in quarterback range and they pick a quarterback, I mean, what's it to like the Raiders if the Raiders end up falling behind the Browns? Or what's it to like, I don't know, the Jets, if the Jets want to take a shot on a quarterback and they're too far behind? Like, I mean, it makes sense for him to be a starting quarterback somewhere in 2026 with the way that he's played. I think he's shown constant improvement. And while there are still things that he has to get better at, the fact that he's grown in two and a half, like games of real NFL action, I could see him being a starting quarterback somewhere next year.
I've gone back and forth on this one, Matt. I think I'm going to say overturn.
Okay.
2 reasons why. One, I don't think the Browns win another game this year. Their schedule is the Bears, the Bills, the Steelers, the Bengals. I don't think they beat any of those teams, right? So, like, I think they end up 3-14. And if you're 3-14, I think the Giants probably win another game. So that means the Browns end up picking in the top 3 then at that point, even if the Raiders and Titans lose all their games. They'll draft in the top 3, and the Titans and Raiders would be the teams above them. So Titans obviously aren't drafting the quarterback. So either flip spots with them, whatever. They're going to be within striking distance of one of the top 2 quarterbacks. And I think there are going to be at least 2, if not 3, in this year's class that are worthy of top 10 selection. So I think they get one. And that's why if they get one, now maybe there's a trade market, but I'm not sure, Shedeur is going to have to play pretty good for you to flip him right away after his rookie season, or to make it worth your while and to not just have him develop on the bench too. So for all those reasons, I think I'm going to say overturned. But I definitely think it's a possibility. And again, if they win another game, I think that's when it becomes a much more realistic possibility. I just don't think they will.
What is the most chaotic Shedeur Sanders trade destination?
Landing spot?
Yeah.
I feel like a really chaotic one would be, no, this one it's not realistic. I was going to say them trading him to the Raiders in a package for the number 1 overall pick. If the Raiders get the number 1 overall pick and they give up a haul to the Raiders, because like the Raiders can draft anyone right now. I don't think it matters. That team just stinks. Like they just need talent. So like you could draft Fernando Mendoza. I don't think it looks any better than what Geno Smith does right now. So I think they just need the talent on that roster. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're a team that, if they end up with a number 1 overall pick, move out of it. That would be the most interesting one to me.
The Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, that would also
I think that would be incredible for the discourse. And like, if you're not sold on 9, bring 12 in. A new number 12.
Oh, that locker room. Give me the in-season Hard Knocks, Minnesota Vikings. I need air to breathe. All right. Next one. The people need more monster casts.
Confirmed, 100%. I loved it, and I thought that Dan Orlovsky did a really good job on the alternate cast. I think explaining the game within like the realm of Monsters Inc. and Monsters University, it was clear they understood the lore and understood like the audience that they were talking to. And I thought that was really cool. I thought it was really effective. I've always enjoyed the Nickelodeon games. I've always enjoyed the Disney alternate cast. I hope they do another one. My favorite one, I think if they do a Cars one, I think that'd be pretty cool. If they did one for Inside Out and it's like the game is playing in the person's head with the emotions as the players, I think that would be really cool. So I want to see them get creative with it because I think the people do need more of it.
I'll be real. I don't watch them live. I couldn't imagine actually sitting down there and watching the entire game like that. But it's great after the fact to go see Sully get a game-winning pick. You know, I watched the whole highlight reel this morning, and it was very entertaining. So I'm gonna confirm the people need more monsters.
The biggest issue with the live is it's always like 3 plays behind the actual game.
Yes, because they have to like put him in the right spot. Like there's a reason why.
Yeah, you got to put them in the right spot. So if you're watching that game live without watching the other game, like you're literally 3 plays behind.
Yeah.
And then real quick before we go to break, I made one tweak to the tiers based on this. If the Chargers can keep Sully all year, I would put them top of the great teams.
I see that. I love that. That makes a lot of sense.
I think they jumped the great teams, if we're being real. It's
They
like
are
add an
beyond
MVP
great.
to that roster. I don't know. I just think that would be better than a great team. That's like your Super Bowl champions.
Imagine Sully versus the Rams in the Super Bowl. Like, come on. Matthew Stafford's great. I don't know if he can throw no-look passes around Sully. The wingspan, he's got too much arms.
He's back when a 7'8", 400-pound defensive end sacks him. Just disintegrates, dude, on contact.
No
Immortal Chamber's going to fix that. All right. We're going to take a break. After that, JP's playbook, my rookie report, offense tackles. Right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, JP, what's in the playbook this week?
Well, as you probably know, it is Toyotathon, so we have to go talk about Jordan Love. Happy holidays. It is Toyotathon. Let's talk about Jordan Love and a really good throw, but also a very good play against what the Bears were doing. So we're going to talk about this touchdown to Bo Melton on Sunday. And if you pause it here, we have a 3-by-1 formation with Christian Watson on the backside. And the Bears are going to be running inverted cover 2. So what that means is Kevin Byard, who's on the left side by Jalen Johnson, closer to the bottom of the screen. What they do in inverted Tampa 2 and an inverted cover 2 is that safety ends up playing the middle of the field because you want a more athletic body. You want someone who has a little more knowledge of route concepts in the middle of the field. Kevin Byard's got a lot of interceptions doing that. And then Jalen Johnson takes off towards the deep half. And you always want to do that towards the backside of the offensive play call because there's only one receiver to that side, or there's one receiver and a running back, or it's one receiver and a chipping tight end. You know, you can design your pressure packages around inverted cover 2 because most of the time the backside of that play is going to be used for help, or it's going to be a running back into the flat. So in this one, the Packers have their running back to the numbers. So it's only one person over there. But I think Matt LaFleur does a good job of baiting Kevin Byard and Jalen Johnson into this play. So they're going to be running dagger, but Bo Melton, known cornerback, runs a post as the second receiver. But the most important player in this is Jaden Reed from the slot. He's running directly at Jalen Johnson. He is trying to tie him down and make sure that he knows, like, oh, I am entering your area of eyesight. Like, I'm going to be the one catching the football. And then, of course, you have Romeo Doubs on the backside running the dig, but that's going to be covered by Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard's seen dagger a lot in the NFL. But this is a great play by Jordan Love and a great play by Matt LaFleur because it ties down that deep half defender that's supposed to be back there in Jalen Johnson and Bo Melton with the inside step on Daquan Brisker. He's going to win that every single time. So I thought it was a great play. I thought the Packers had the advantage every time they dropped back to throw the ball against the Bears, because even if they played man coverage, they were kind of shredding them. But it felt like Matt LaFleur knew exactly what to call against the Bears defense every single time.
I think one of the most interesting things about this play, like that, I think is important to keep in mind when watching film or just like when watching college prospects, if that's your thing. Not every route is designed for that player to get open. And Jaden Reed's route on this play is a great example. He runs down the throat of Jalen Johnson there intentionally. He knows if his thought process on this play was, I need to get open, what he ends up doing is taking Jalen Johnson into that throwing lane. If he widens, gets deeper, tries to go above Jalen Johnson, that would bring him underneath this throw and back into where Bo Melton is. But what he doesn't do is exactly that. He runs right to him. He knows, given that coverage that they called, he's not getting the football there. And he's fine with it and holds Jalen Johnson nonetheless. That's good team football. That is something that, again, I think we're watching tape and like watching receiver and being like, why didn't he get open on this play? It's like, well, not every route is designed for every guy to get open. And so that was actually a great play by Jaden Reed on that.
Sometimes you got to run routes for the love of the game. You're out there, you got to be the hero. You don't have to be the one catching the ball, but you got to be the one tying them down. So it was a great play by Jaden Reed, great call by Matt LaFleur, and then Jordan Love just casually like fadeaway jumpering the 60-yard pass to Bo Melton is why he's one of the coolest quarterbacks in the NFL. For this next playbook play, we are going to the snowy tundra of Buffalo and Christian Benford, who I think is one of the coolest and most underrated corners in the NFL. He is so good at playing cover two and playing the flat that now the Bills have started to use him as a blitzer, and he's been super effective, and he sort of baited the Bengals into his pick six on Sunday. So this first play that we have, it's hard to tell with the snow and everything, but the Bengals are in the middle of the field. But because they have all the pressure look up front at the line of scrimmage, they walk up Chase Brown. The Bengals do that a lot because they want to try and get an immediate body on one of those linebackers. And what they do is Joe Burrow will walk a running back up, they'll max protect, and they throw the ball downfield. But where the Bills get the Bengals is because Chase Brown is sitting directly up front with basically essentially a sixth lineman or an extra guard watching the interior. There's nobody watching the corner blitz off the edge. Joe Burrow is hot off of that. You're hot off of any unblocked guy off the edge. You're not expecting the cornerback blitz from the backside of the play. So if you roll the play, I actually think it's a really cool design by Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott. So they're going to roll Taron Johnson back into cover two. So they're spinning everything. And they drop the linebacker and Greg Rousseau. And Joe Burrow's trying to get this deep route open as Mike Gesicki starts to run the out route. And as you watch the play develop, as you keep the play rolling, the corner just never takes the bait, never drops with him because he's trying to get that go ball, but the corner just never takes the bait on it. Christian Benford is unblocked. So now, next play. You saw it from the sideline view. Now let's go to the next play. The pick six. Backside, once again, Christian Benford, and they're going to run the same corner blitz. But Joe Burrow knows that he's going to run the same corner blitz. So what he's going to try and do, which is what you want to do against corner blitz, is throw it hot to the guy that's leaving. Don't let the defense get settled in. They're going to try and throw it hot to Jamar Chase, get him the ball, let him use his yards after the catch ability. But Christian Benford also sees him sort of like take a step back and try and get the ball out immediately, gets his hands up. It's what you're taught as a defensive lineman. If the ball is out quick, get your hands up. because you're going to try and either bat the pass or try and tip the ball up for an interception. Christian Benford makes an incredible play on the ball, pick six, that essentially flipped the game for the Bills. It helped them take over that game. So I think it was a really good job by Benford, who was one of the most underrated corners in the NFL, but also a great job by the Bills of using him as a blitzer, which they have over the last couple of weeks, to help sort of not only steal protection looks, but to bait Joe Burrow into a mistake.
Why did it look like Joe Burrow was throwing a brick on that side? Like, it looked like he was like, the ball was too heavy. You just like shot putting that. That was probably the worst play I've ever seen Joe Burrow make in his entire career. I think it was just a disaster from start. It just slipped out of his hand.
I think it did sort of slip out of his hands. I don't think he had a good grip on the ball because he wasn't throwing with the laces. And so he was just trying to get the ball out hot.
Didn't have Tiger Woods' dad blowing in his ear every time in his backswing to make him stop. You just got to stop. You can't do that. I don't know what the hell that was, but you can't throw if you're not getting a good grip of the ball. You just got to eat that play.
You got to kill it, or you got just throw it into the ground or something, because they got you.
That changed. That was a game winner. Good shit, JP. Gosh, shouldn't curse, but good stuff. Next up, rookie report. We're going to the offensive tackle class, where we have, doing the math in my head right now, I think we have 7 guys in this rookie tackle class that have played meaningful snaps. We have the 5 first-rounders this season alongside Ozzie Trapillo and Ariante Ursary at offensive tackle. And I'd go as far as to say that given what I've seen from all 5 of the first-rounders, I hope you picked a tackle in this year's draft. I think all 5 are franchise offensive tackles, not necessarily already in terms of their play, but like very close. And again, offensive tackle such that you improve by leaps and bounds over the course of your career. It's probably before year 3 until you're really feeling like, guys start to hit their stride and become what they ultimately will be at the NFL level. And we're already seeing at least 4 guys play at competent to quality starting level since week 7. PFF grades right now. Kelvin Banks is 13th among all tackles in the NFL. Will Campbell's 28th. Armand Membu's 32nd. So if you think about it, 64 starting tackles. All 3 of those guys are in the top half. And now Josh Simmons doesn't qualify for that. He's obviously been injured, has the hand, might not play the rest of the season, but he has been amongst the rookie offensive tackles the single best pass protector when you watch him on tape. He has elite movement skills, great hand usage. I mean, truthfully, from just like a body habitus perspective, he might have the trimmest waist of any offensive lineman in the NFL. That guy is put together how you want. I mean, it reminds me of like a Tyron Smith body type, where Tyron Smith was just like, the guy wasn't fat. He's 300 pounds, but he wasn't fat. Now, I think Simmons, he's listed at 310. I don't think he's 310. I think that's his biggest issue right now. I think he's like 280, honestly, just judging how he looks on tape. Easily the smallest offensive lineman on the Chiefs offensive line. His issues kind of revolve around play strength, but play strength is one of the few things you can correct over the course of your careers. It gets better for guys. Twitchiness, explosiveness, that doesn't usually improve. Innate physical traits are things like that. Fluidity, body control, those are hard to improve upon. Strength is one that you can improve upon. He has all the things that you can't really improve upon. Josh Simmons, that's why it's like he's going to be a good one if everything, his health and off field is clean going forward. I would argue that amongst the top tackles, or amongst the first round tackles, and this is going to sound bad, but it's also like, just go show you how good these tackles are. I think Will Campbell might ultimately be the worst of the 5. And this is, again, no shade. I think he's going to be a very good offensive tackle in the NFL. I just think the other 4 are awesome offensive tackles, whether it's Kelvin Banks, who's already, like I said, 13th highest graded tackle in the NFL. His wingspan and ability to, I think, play stunts is what really stands out when watching his tape. He's so laterally, effortlessly as a mover, and that's what helps in pass protection. And then just like the sheer size and physicality is impressive with him. I think his biggest issue right now is his anchor in the passing game. You see him walk back more than a lot of these other guys. and that can improve, something that can and should improve with him. With Armand Membu, I mean, he is the best run blocker in this rookie class. I fully expect him to be, maybe not Penei Sewell level, but to be like a top 5 run blocking offensive tackle before the end of his rookie contract. Guy is lights out, no anchor issues with him. He's been outstanding, really not a lot of negatives to speak of in terms of just what he could become. And then I think the most interesting one has been Josh Connerly, because early on the season, you could tell Josh Connerly was not ready to play off tackle in the NFL. By now, though, the last 4 games, he's given up only 5 pressures. I've been very impressed with what I saw these past few games. His feet are outstanding. The mirror ability is top notch. I think it's only a matter of time with him, and really has all the physical tools you could want to be a high-end tackle at the NFL level. And, he's going at a situation in Washington where his life's a little easier probably than these other offensive tackles on this list because of the nature of the offense, who he's pass protecting for, all those sorts of things. But I fully expect him to be a franchise tackle, given what I've seen from him over the past 4 or 5 games. Those are your first rounders. Have you had much exposure to these guys or have any takes on those first round OTs?
I think Josh Simmons is going to be the best one of the bunch.
Yeah, I've kind of come around to that too. So obviously we don't know what happened with all his off-field stuff. The injuries still concerning, but like what he looks like is the guy who should be the best ultimately.
He sort of reminds me of Christian Darrisaw and just how boring it looks when he plays. Like the best compliment you can get as an offensive lineman is that you play boring. And there have been some real emphatic moments from him in pass protection. I think of a rep against Kwity Paye a couple weeks ago in the Colts game where Kwity Paye tries to long arm him. Josh Simmons anchors him, resets, and then snatch traps him into a pancake and then kind of sits on him. And I'm like, oh, that's one of the best reps I've seen from any tackle this season. Like being able to eat the bull rush, stop him in his tracks, reset your hands, and then snatch him down. He did that a couple times in the Colts game. And he's just – Kyle talked about it a lot where he's so athletic that he gives himself a wider margin for error that it's so impressive watching him play. I think Will Campbell – probably means the most to his team in terms of just the physicality, the mindset that he has. I still sort of worry about he and Jared Wilson together at guard and tackle because I don't think they've passed off stunts very well this season. And I think a lot of it is because I think Jared Wilson is a center and not a guard. And I think Campbell, he gives up the inside too much because he's trying to overcompensate for the lack of arm length by beating everybody to the spot, to the edge. So that leaves him open, which is why you get a lot of stunts to his side where it's just not working for him. Mm-hmm. Kelvin Banks, I've genuinely been pleasantly surprised by over the last few weeks. I was a little skeptical when the Saints picked him at 9, just because I thought the wide base and sort of the inability to anchor would sort of bring him down the board a little bit. But like you said, the passing off of stunts, the ability to recognize that, especially in an offense that 5-out protection, a lot more than they should. They do a lot. They do a lot of 5-out. You are the only one on an island. They do a lot more of it than they should. But Kelvin Banks has survived that, and I think he's played well. And Armand Membu, just the athleticism pops off the tape. When you watch Jets offense, the most athletic players might be there on the offensive line. And that's even with Justin Fields being incredibly athletic. That's even with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. So that athleticism is really just sort of standing out. And then Connerly, I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised that he's played well. I'm happy that he's starting to turn a corner because everybody's going to remember Micah Parsons doing what he did to him in week 2, and then the Seahawks game where everything just falls apart. But the fact that he's played well lately is really good for his development, and they're going to need him moving forward because they need young talent around their quarterback.
Yeah, and he fell to where he did because you knew it wasn't going to be good right out the gate. Like that is some guys you can see it on tape where it's just like, hey, they're not quite ready for the NFL game. That was him, but you always hope that in time. And it's encouraging that the time is already his rookie year. Sometimes guys, take their licks the entire year and then improve over the offseason. It's great to see that he's improving literally over the course of the season. I want to touch on Banks for just one more second before we get to the guys who are second rounders. I think one of the biggest things that I don't want to say encouraged me with Banks, but like that I felt good about Banks moving forward and translating to the NFL. Is I thought Texas's offensive line was so poorly coached last year and this year. And I think they're paying for it this year because they don't have quite the talent that they did last year in terms of NFL guys. And I just was very underwhelmed by the technique across the board. You know, the best offensive linemen or best offensive lines, they work in unison. There's everyone stepping the same, everyone, you know, like there is a cohesiveness to how they go about their business because, like you mentioned, with stunts or with combos and other sorts of blocks, like you are working in tandem with the guy next to you. You can't separate your play from the guy next to you. It's just more often than not, that's not how offensive line play works. And what I saw on tape at Texas was an offensive line that was not working in unison. And so I was like, I think he's actually going to get some better coaching at the next level. And I think that a lot of the issues I saw through my tape, I'm like, I think they can be cleaned up. I see a guy who is very coordinated. And so it's good to see that Banks with NFL coaching has improved a lot of those things. Let's get to the second rounders, where we have two guys who have seen over 200 snaps. So we have Ariante Ursary, who's been basically the starting left tackle from day one for the Texans. 894 snaps, actually the most of any offensive lineman. And Ozzie Trapillo, who's just come on to be the left tackle of the Bears. 294 snaps. And I think both are clearly behind those five guys who are first rounders. I think there's clearly a reason why those guys were first rounders. These guys weren't. Just from a physical perspective, from a ceiling perspective, it's really night and day. You're really just hoping that these guys can give you some serviceable play, is I think where you're at with them. I don't see either developing into what those five could develop into in first round. But I feel better about Ursary at this point than I do Trapillo. Maybe that's because he's played a lot more football, but I don't think it's just that. With him, you see much better power. You see much better body power translating to the NFL, whether it's his anchor, whether it's ability on contact, whether it's ability to, have his hands actually do work for him. You see some nice snatches on his tape. Now, he does not have the body control and fluidity that those first rounders do. He does not move the same. You see it out in space. That's not who he is. And so from that perspective, I think he's going to be capped. Guys who don't have that, there's a lot of guys starting on the NFL who don't have that, but there just aren't the guys who make Pro Bowls, make all pros. So with him and the improvement he's had from week one till now, I think he could be your long-term answer at left tackle. Just don't expect it to ever look like Laramie Tunsil. I think you're always going to be a little bit, we could do better here, but I think Ursary is going to be a starting tackle in the NFL, given what I've seen from him. It just might not be an elite starting tackle. Whereas Trapillo, on the other hand, I have serious question marks still. I think with him, he's so tall at 6'8" that his ability to gain leverage, whether it's in pass protection, whether it's in the running game, is an issue. He plays tall, and then locating defenders has also been his biggest issue, in my opinion. When you're tall, it's like it's why LeBron's so unique, because he's tall and nimble laterally. Giannis, why he's so unique, tall and nimble laterally. Usually it's your 5'10", 6 foot point guards who can run around you. It's not your 6'8" small forwards who can run around defenders. And that's the same with offensive tackles. Usually it's, why does Josh Simmons move the way he does? Well, he's 6'4". Why does Trapillo, why can't he? Well, he's 6'8". It's just tougher to move like that when you are 6'8". And I think that's the biggest thing with him, is just the lateral movement skills. The match and mirror is very worrisome, I'll say, for an offensive tackle. Strong hands. I think he's best in a phone booth. But I think he ideally going forward is kind of your safety net option, your swing tackle. I just am worried about, I don't see, next year, week one, he's our starting left tackle.
And I think the biggest thing for Ozzie Trapillo and moving forward, a lot of offensive tackles who are that tall, there really not a lot of precedent for guys that are 6'8" or above playing tackle. Like Jordan Mailata is probably one of the better modern examples. But Jordan Mailata also has incredibly light, incredibly quick feet because he played rugby for a long time. He has that expertise in another sport. I always used to say, if you're 6'8" and you're playing offensive lineman, you probably don't have quick feet, because if you're 6'8" and had quick feet, you probably play in the NBA.
Yep.
You probably be starting for the Lakers right now. But Trapio, I just think he sort of fits what the Bears need right now in terms of maximizing their run game and the play action stuff. I do think between he and Theo Benedette, they need to get a better pass protector, or hope that one of those guys grows into a better pass protector. So it's just going to be tough for him because, like you said, it's hard to anchor when you're 6'8". It's hard to get low. It's hard to sink your hips when you're 6'8". That's a lot of body you got to move. And then for Ursary, I think for me, like you said, the footwork, the agility in space isn't there. But when you watch him play, he will knock people over in the run game. And I think that matters a lot for the Texans, because they just need to establish some sort of identity on the ground. You saw it in the Chiefs game. They were able to get runs when they needed to. That's what they need from this offense. They need to be able to hang their hat on something. And Ursary isn't the most nimble guy. He's shown like flashes of nice hand strength, nice movement in pass protection. But his thing is more, we're going to get downhill. We're going to try and knock people over in the run game and use play action. So I think he's probably going to can develop into a fine starter. I think Trapio's a little further away, but like you said, there's a clear tier below for those guys compared to the first rounders.
Still, again, I'll reiterate, if you drafted an OT, you're probably happy as heck. I think this year's offensive tackle class, I said at the time, I thought it was getting underrated. I was like, these guys, I think are just all very good. Just take them. I don't think it's that big of a reach to just like, hey, number 5 overall pick, take one of these guys. You'll have a good offensive tackle, and lo and behold, I think that's bearing out. We'll see if what their ceilings develop into, but people pay, the 20th best tackle in the NFL a lot of money. So you take what you can get, and we have 5 guys who I would all bet are top 20 tackles in the offensive in the NFL by the end of their rookie deals.
And I think it's also important in relation to the 2026 tackle class. If you didn't get one last year and you need one this year, you're probably waiting until next year to go get one, because this tackle class upcoming doesn't really have the same level of talent. You're not going to find 5 starting offensive tackles in the first round like you did last year.
I would put, so of the first rounders, I had Connerly lowest on my board. I'm not sure, just grades given out, and I'm going to be going through those the next few weeks here. I'm not sure I'm going to give anyone a higher grade at pure tackle than Josh Connerly. It'd probably be close. I think what I've watched some Francis Maui-Noah, I think he's good. I've watched some Caleb Lomu. I think those are probably going to be the top 2, because I see all the other guys as like guards, whether it's Fano, whether it's Proctor. I think they're all guards. I think it'll be close, but like that's what we're dealing with. The best tackle was the worst first round tackle last year. So that it's just going to be a different caliber of OT class this year, unfortunately. There you have it. There's our Tuesday show. We will be back on Thursday, breaking down all the week 15 action. We got the playoff stretch here coming up. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, keep pushing.